Welcome back. One final point before we go tonight. Since Monday night, 6,755,610 people have watched Jimmy Kimmel's tearful plea for gun control, and that's just on YouTube. I'm one of those viewers. I've watched his monologue twice, actually. It's 9 minutes long, and it is chock full of inaccuracies. Let's break it down.
This to be a comedy show. I hate talking about stuff like this. I just want to, laugh about things every night, but it seems to be becoming increasingly difficult lately. It feels like someone has opened a window into hell. And what I'm talking about tonight isn't about gun control. It's about common sense.
And there it is, the most used and abused, recycled, nonsensical talking point the Democrats pull out of their back pocket every time they talk about gun control. It's common sense, they say. Well, let me ask you this. What is common sense about restricting the rights of law-abiding gun owners as punishment for the heinous murder of lawbreakers? What makes you think bad guys would stop getting their hands on guns just because the guns are illegal? Did that work when we illegalized drugs? It's fundamentally flawed logic, and it should be elementary. Banning guns wouldn't stop criminals because criminals already don't care about breaking the law. But Kimmel goes on.
Common sense says no good will ever come from allowing a person to have weapons that can take down 527 Americans at a concert.
86 people killed in Nice, France by a terrorist with a truck. 3,000 people killed in New York City by terrorists with airplanes and bombs. 23 people killed and 250 others wounded in Manchester, England by a terrorist with a bomb at the Ariana Grande concert. Should we ban trucks, pressure cookers, jetliners? Well, of course not, because it's not the weapon that commits the crime. It's funny how none of the other lorries in Europe have gone on murderous rampages without a driver with a mission to kill. It's the criminal who commits the crime.
Common sense says you don't let those who suffer from mental illness buy guns.
Listen, there's absolutely no doubt that Stephen Paddock was a demented individual. Only an evil and sick mind could justify committing indiscriminate mass murder like he did. But Paddock had never been diagnosed with any mental illness that we are aware of currently. It's already against federal law to sell or give a firearm to any person, and I quote federal statute here, any person who has been adjudicated as a mental defective or has been committed to any mental institution. That's not to mention the myriad of state regulations limiting access to weapons to people with severe mental illnesses. But Kimmel doesn't care about facts, and he keeps going.
The NRA fought to make sure people on the no-fly list can buy guns. They aren't allowed to get on a plane. They're allowed to own a very dangerous gun. Who thinks that makes sense?
This does make sense because the no-fly list doesn't make sense. Did you know people are mistakenly put on the no-fly list all the time? Like innocent people? Did you know Senator Ted Kennedy was mistakenly put on the no-fly list? And there's no recourse for American citizens who are accidentally added to this list. It's not just terrorists and terror suspects. Now, it might not be a bad idea to prohibit people on the no-fly list from purchasing firearms, but not until the no-fly list itself is reformed. Just a little research and Jimmy Kimmel would have known that. But no, he'd rather stick to his false narrative.
An amendment, I guess, our forefathers wanted us to have AK-47s, is the argument, I assume. Orlando, Newtown, Aurora, San Bernardino, every one of these shootings, the murder used automatic or semi-automatic rifles, which are not weapons you use for self-defense.
First of all, Mr. Kimmel, let me get personal for a moment. Maybe you don't use semi-automatic weapons like an AR-15 for self-defense. You're surrounded by security at all times. But many women, especially petite women like me, find AR-15s easier to handle for self-defense or home defense than, say, a shotgun. What message are you sending to women when you push to ban AR-15s? You're telling us we don't know best how to defend ourselves and telling us we don't have a right to do so. Second of all, we don't know yet what kind of weapon Stephen Paddock used. The latest reports say he modified his semi-automatic weapons, but automatic weapons have been illegal in the U.S. for 31 years, since 1986. Please look up your facts before you spew more nonsense.
In February, he also signed a bill that made it easier for people with severe mental illness to buy guns legally.
Well, that was just false, and Jimmy Kimmel knows that. Democrats lied about the story earlier in the year, but here's the truth of it. Right before he left office, President Obama gave the Social Security Administration power to take away people's right to bear arms without going to court, if the person receives disability from mental impairment that prevents the person from working. The key phrase here that Jimmy Kimmel ignores is taking away people's rights without going to court. What that means is Obama tried to deny citizens due process of law. President Trump restored due process. And then Democrats lied about it. The repeal of the rule still prohibits people who have been adjudicated in court as mentally ill or unstable from purchasing firearms. But that's just it. The Democrats who are using Jimmy Kimmel as their mouthpiece, they don't care about common sense. They don't. They don't care about facts. They don't care that research shows gun control doesn't stop murder. Just look at Chicago. All the Democrats want to do is blame the NRA, blame the weapon, blame Republicans, blame legal gun owners, and blame Donald Trump, and ultimately take away our Second Amendment rights. This is how they start doing that. Is that common sense? And that's my final point. You can reach me on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. If you liked the show, please send me an email at oann.com/contact. In the meantime, catch us here tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a good night.